Alright, welcome back to episode 12 of What If Civilization Started Over. If you can see in the thumbnail, today's episode is going to be pretty cool. There's going to be a war. Yeah, there's a war in most episodes. Also, just realized something. This island down here, the red team's not meant to own this. So I guess, you can have it. There you go. You take Socotra. Alright, anyway, in the last episode, of course, we had the collapse of the Red Country. They still have a border on the Caspian and border here in Kuwait, for now. They also splintered into 7 different kingdoms. Well, they're not all kingdoms, actually. I guess I can pull that up. One of them got conquered by the Iranians, that's why they got some new territory up here. As for the rest of them, there's a green and a sort of indigo theocracy, which is a new form of government. There's one not absolute monarchy, which is the orange sort of Hejaz country, and there's 3 absolute monarchies. The beige one's influenced by Africa, and the other 2 are influenced by the Persians, so it's pretty cool. Yeah, I also added absolute monarchies. Most of them are in the Middle East. What did I do? Most of them are in the Middle East. There's one in China, a few over here in Asia, none in Europe except for Caucasia, which is interesting. I mean, that was kind of like a load of setting up for the stuff that's going to happen in today's video, which is a war. So how did this war come about? Well, the Polish are going to start it. I guess we should start with the war. I don't know how long it's going to take, but we'll see. We might have more time to do stuff at the end. I'm just not really sure. The Polish previously tried to send envoys down to the Carthage. They wanted the Carthaginians to become solid allies with them because they weren't entirely sure that they were safe. You know, they're pretty stranded out here in the north. The French are there. I mean, the France is definitely getting stronger. They are currently 9th. I feel like Mesopotamia. France might be able to beat the Mesopotamians. Probably in a few episodes they will be able to. Maybe just one. As for otherwise, Central Asia's pretty strong. Caucasia. Maybe Central Asia's beating I don't know. I feel like maybe you are stronger than them now. It's very close in that sort of area. Then, you get to Carthage and India and Persia, Poland and Rome. They're a class above, like, these guys in France, whatever. So there you go. Because you don't really have any other opportunities for allies. However, the Romans learnt of this when they went past the Roman capital, back home. And yeah, well, they didn't like that, so they didn't let any Polish ships through the Bosphorus, which kind of limits their trade, but they'll be fine. The main problem was that people wanted to go through this, and in the end, a few Polish nationalists bombed Constantinople, and by bombed, I just mean they set fire to stuff, and like killed people and raided it. I don't know, stole, kidnapped people, which isn't very nice. A whole load of that stuff isn't nice, and as you can understand, the Romans took offense and declared war on the Polish. So the Polish king / aristocracy, because I showed you the ideology map at the start. Don't know if you looked at Poland, however they are now split between a monarchy and an aristocracy just because of how sort of like divided their nation is. These are not the borders of the nation, but as you can imagine, it's kind of like this, and all these split up divided areas, but a lot smaller than that, like counties and all these kinds of represented. Yeah, very, very like federated. Anyway, so let's see the war start. The Romans are the ones who are going to lead off this war. However, the Polish, they were prepared for a possible conflict with the Romans, so they kind of saw this coming, and they have their military stuff lined up along this border. They're going to retreat slightly, just so they can kind of see what the Romans do when they start invading. So they invade into this area. It's kind of like an easy encirclement area, and they're going to do a similar sort of thing around this bit. This is also an area where there were ethnic Romans before. They ceded a lot of land to the Polish beforehand because they didn't want the people there rebelling. However, there's still people in that area who were pro-Roman and then had to become Polish. And I mean, it's been like centuries, but they're still kind of there. Those sentiments are still there. The Romans are also invaded into the Ukrainian part of the Polish territory. However, Poland's not going to take this sitting down. That's the phrase, isn't it? Yeah, I'm confused now. Anyway, they push into this sort of middle area where lots of troops were not concentrated. They were concentrated over here in the west and the east of this area. And the Polish have been able to break through the lines and have a massive invasion into this territory. They also try to go around the Swiss mountains, and they make a bid at trying to persuade Switzerland to join the war. Unfortunately, Switzerland's not a very strong country. They've got some stuff like Bavaria or Baden-Württemberg, which is good territory. You know, those some of the richest provinces of our modern-day Germany. However, like they're all based in the mountains, and their military is just rubbish because nobody can be bothered to conquer them. So yeah, Poland makes some invasions. However, Poland's the one who doesn't have allies, whilst the Romans last time secured a good ally, the Caucasians. Also, let's remember cities, because I need that. Yes, a lot of dots. However, the Caucasians, they're not too strong at the moment, and they need a bit of time to prep. They need prep time. Anyway, the Polish will invade towards this city, make a pretty good invasion towards there. You know, of course, the aim will be to push to Constantinople, whilst the Roman aim is to push up here. Not that many cities around the Alps, strangely enough. And the Romans just kind of want to cut off this bit now. However, they're not doing too well at that. The supply lines here are pretty good, and the Swiss are actually allowing them to take stuff through the mountains in return for money, because everyone likes money, especially the Swiss. That's seriously like the entire Swiss economy in real life, not this. I don't know what your economy is in real life in this series, mate. I don't know what's going on here. One of your cities is just this exclave. I thought that'd be funny. Anyway, so Poland and Rome, they continue this war. Rome struggles to push on this area because it's pretty densely controlled. However, they have a massive success over here in Romania or Ukraine or wherever that is. They try to push towards this river and the old territory of that blue Ukrainian country, who's not existed for a while. However, the Polish are still going to have success in this central, not central, but Hungarian part of their territory, maybe. So that's good. That's their main offensive. However, an incredible defeat happens over here as they manage to take these two cities. I don't quite know where that is. That Austria, maybe, or Italy? And they even come up behind the Roman lines, which the Romans really weren't expecting. They had most of their stuff based in this city, so they weren't really expecting that. And the people get surrounded over here in the city. Luckily, there's not too many Roman forces that far away, and they will connect up. I mean, it's probably quite far away, and they even managed to take this city. So, you know, it's really back and forth. However, you can see the big Polish force over here, big one over here. There's a Roman sort of force around here, and another one there. It's kind of obvious that. Oh well. And finally, the Caucasians have got it together. Come on, man. And they're going to be joining the war against Poland. So they want Crimea and they want their Ukrainian territories. They really hate the Polish. You know, although they're kind of responsible for Poland doing all this stuff. I mean, if they hadn't conquered them, they could have probably sort of like assimilated them-ish. They puppeted the pink and the orange countries in a way. They actually puppeted the old blue country, but they were kind of like vassal states in a way. So you could have done that. However, they just could not trust it. The kings were too paranoid. And yeah. Anyway, they make an alright invasion along this area. However, they're only really taking cities that are close by. And quite quickly, Polish lines will set in, and there's going to be lots of battles. Well, not really, but I don't know. There's less battles in this sort of time period. But I guess like preparing for battles and looting and just fighting the general populace, because why not? The Polish are going to pull a sort of square thing where they try and make their territory less susceptible to just spearheads and separating it all into little bits. So they do that. However, the Romans, the Romans just try and like centralize this bit because it's split between two separate areas, and they pull everyone towards invading towards this area. This does mean that they end up ceding the city back to the Polish, but they don't really mind, you know. They want to try and split the sort of Polish and the German territories away from the empire, even though it's a very navally powerful empire, and there's no one to rival them in the Baltic. So there might be some flaws in that plan, but oh well. The Romans will also aim towards taking the Ukrainian territories, because now the Caucasians are here, and that's going to be pretty helpful. So they push around into Crimea and take all this stuff. And the Romans really weren't, or the Polish weren't really expecting such a massive invasion into Crimea. They didn't think they'd focus that much on this territory. You might as well, though. It's one of the 5 constituent kingdoms of Poland. However, yes, lots of autonomous federal districts. However, there's 5 autonomous kingdoms, and then lots of other autonomous bits. Anyway, I think I need to speed this up. So, they invade into these 2 cities. Pretty cool. Apparently, I just can't draw a line for some reason. So the Caucasians are actually being stronger than they thought. However, finally, one ship will make it. And I mean, how do they get this ship out? It's kind of crazy, actually. It's the biggest victory in the entire Polish thing as they push down towards the surprisingly uncityless area of Venice. They managed to get here. They loot a boat from somewhere, and through an incredible twist of fate, they managed to, well, incredible thing, basically. They sail all the way to Carthage. It's meant to be very realistic. I don't care. Now, this is not going to be without losses because they just focus their entire force on taking coast on the Adriatic. And because of that, they retake this city and they also push around here, almost separating Germany off from the rest of Poland. It's not though, and it's fine, because nobody else is really attacking Germany. However, with this, Carthage will finally hear, yep, it's time to join the war. They're probably going to do that anyway, but yeah, Carthage will join the conflict against the Romans, and they're going to have a great time, because the Romans haven't really fortified their southern border. Well, they have, but they weren't really expecting Carthage to join the war. Their leaders kind of made an oversight, thinking, we made sure that they won't join because we stopped them from communicating, but you didn't. So that was a bit of a failure. They invade into the relatively rural, sort of poor Sinai / Western Eastern Egyptian area and push up into Israelistine or the southern Levant. I don't know. It's a bit of land. Who knows who owns it? Anyway, God. The Romans are going to continue their offensive over here. Okay, back in China now. Back over here into Ukraine. There's a massive sort of pocket of just cityless territory kind of around here. And they're going to aim for that. They also aim to take out one of the constituent kingdoms. And they increase nationalism within this eastern territory. As these guys kind of going, we're losing this war a lot. And certain groups are going to rise up within the Polish country. They've all got funding from like thanes and stuff. Lords and whatever. And the Polish don't love that. It's kind of concerning when people start rising up against you. And they're going to try and withdraw people from this front to combat the fact that people are withdrawing from your army to go and fight you elsewhere. So that's not great. However, down here in the south, they're actually doing pretty well. They somehow managed to hold out in Italy, and they're going to invade into these mountains. The Swiss, of course, are still supplying them. They've got stuff, I guess. Probably not much stuff, but they're trying. The Carthaginians have a lot of success down here in Iberia. They push over here into Portugal, taking, I suppose, Lisbon? Is that Lisbon? Maybe. They also take this city, whatever the hell that is, and attempts are made to invade Sicily, but they go unsuccessfully. Because the Romans do like their Sicilian territory. With the threat of Carthage becoming greater, the Romans are going to try and make an invasion into the capital, or not the capital, but into Tunisia. And they make a landing down here in this peninsula, however it goes horribly. The people are blasted to bits by, I guess, like catapults and arrows and stuff. And unfortunately, the Romans are pushed out of Tunisia. And this is a massive loss of life. I mean, it's not anything that we'd call a massive loss of life in a modern day war, probably. Although, I mean, you've got kind of conscription and like people from conquered territories who are just forced into the army. So it is a lot of people who die there, and it's a massive blow to the Roman army, especially over here in Italy. And this is going to cause them to have to kind of like what's the word? Like jumble around the stuff. Go, oh, what are we going to do? We need to change some things so we can kind of improve this. And this means that the Polish actually do make a good counteroffensive into their territories around here. However, they're not really doing well in Ukraine. The Romans apparently are great over here in Ukraine. The Caucasians have come to a bit of a standstill. They're still trying. They're still doing stuff. It's just they've reached a bit where there's lots of cities, and apparently there's just a lot of people living here. The Orange team is now kind of falling behind the Caucasians, which is strange, but lots of Orange team nationalists are joining sides. Just joining the side of the Caucasians Probably down to religion. There's some like smattering of what's the word? Orange team religious people in this area. That's why. Anyway, yeah, somebody just saw the Romans had a massive failure over here in Europe, and that's France. So France, eager to get back the territories they lost in southern France, will join the war. They send their military basically just only the southern French area, and it goes very well. They captured 3 cities pretty quickly. The Romans did not have it on their bingo cards that France would join the war, and yeah, France is going to take over a lot of territory. They push around the border over here, and they link up to the Polish. Now they ask Switzerland, "Hey, can you fund us like you're funding the Polish and giving us food and let us go through your land?" And the Swiss are very reluctant to do this, and that's basically because France has expressed before they've got claims on Swiss stuff. France is like, "Yeah, I'd like this." So Switzerland's not really eager to do that. They could though. They probably will eventually. And in the end, Poland is just going to force them to do so because they're like, "Hey, we'll give you Southern Alps, like Ticino and what's that bit of Austria that the Swiss want? Warsburg or something? I don't know. That sounds. No, I think that's Swedish. I don't know. Something like that. It's the. Oh, what is that bit called? I just watched a video on that. I can't remember what it's called. A bit of Austria. Oh, Tyrol. Yeah, they want Tyrol. The French actually have a massive victory, and this means that Iberia is starting to crumble as groups rise up here eager for their independence, especially in these center 3 cities. It's really strange in Iberia because well, it's all blue team religion, which is cool, I guess. But there's the Spanish, Italians, and the Carthaginian sort of ethnic group in this area, and the two of those ethnic groups did not like each other. Anyway, Rome's kind of given up on the western side of their empire, and they're going to focus over here in the east as they make a massive offensive into this blue team invaded territory, and then just go, "Hey, let's focus on Ukraine, guys." So by focusing on Ukraine, they give a lot of stuff to the Caucasians, they help them out over here militarily, and the Polish are not having a great time around there. We see the orange team rebels and even now pink team rebels, but it's not a crazy amount. So push around this bit. All of the river over here, it's just some people are like, "Yeah, river's cool, man. I like the river." Until finally, the green team will join join the Roman side of the conflict, going over for this territory. They've never had a war before, except for the kind of independence war, but you know, this is cool. They take some territory, they take 2 cities, and they push over towards these rivers, slash lakes, slash bodies of water. Don't get any cities apparently. I thought there would have been cities on this river, but apparently not, so that's fun. Anyway, there you go, your first ever war, technically. But now it's time for a bit of revenge, because the red team will be joining the war against, whatever it's called, the Romans. So they want their old stuff back, they want their old glory back. Their nationalism has gone down, but it's not disappeared. So they managed to push through sort of like Lebanon and Israelistine, moving into Syria. They take over this stuff, and they also have to try and fight up against Caucasians. They don't do terribly, you know, they don't completely fail, but they also kind of do. They take 1 city pretty quickly, or there is a major defense of the Caucasians, and they also push around to the southern border. How there's not a whole lot going on there. They just try and go to the Caucasians like, "Oh, we don't want your stuff, we want to beat the Romans up, so maybe don't attack us, and we'll just let you keep a load of Ukraine in a possible peace treaty." And they're like, "Yeah, that's okay, I mean, I guess." So the red team has, with irredentist claims, returned to the global sphere. Potentially, they might just get crushed. However, the Romans have a lot of fronts to deal with, and this is going to be a major problem for them. As over here, they're just losing so much land. They lose these 2 cities, and it looks like this invasion over here is just going to collapse. The Polish managed to lead an invasion onto the western side of Italy, and now Italian rebels are popping up, but supporting Poland. So that's pretty cool. The Romans over here in Russia, I guess. That's crazy. The Romans got to Russia. Are doing very well. They're kind of just their own sort of group now, their own autonomous thing. And this is going to cause some secession stuff as Finland goes, "Hey, I don't want to be part of this country anymore." And they will declare their independence as their own Finnish country. Problem is, it's Finland, so they're not going to do that much. However, there you go. There's Finland. Hooray for Finland. The Caucasians will take over the remainder of this territory, kind of. Yeah, let's just give it to them. I don't care enough about the green team. They take over this, and this means they can now focus down here on the red team. So let's do that, I guess. Caucasia is really proving itself to be actually kind of good. Anyway, the French take over this Italian stuff, and over here in Iberia, the Romans have just given up supporting this. However, where's somebody they haven't given up fighting? It's the red team. They just do not like the red team, not at all. They really hate them, in fact. So yeah, with hatred of the red team in their veins, they will actually invade towards them, and this is going to scare a certain somebody other than the red team. Because obviously they're scared, and they don't like being scared. But it will actually scare the Persians. How are the Persians? They can't fight the Romans. The red team's in the way. So, how do we get them out of the way? Well, the Persians will declare war on not just Rome, but also the Mesopotamians as they invade and take Baghdad, the capital of the red team, which I don't even think got taken in the war between the red team and the Romans. I might be wrong, but this might be the first time that the capital's ever been taken. Caucasia and Rome aren't in an official alliance, so I don't think these guys are at war with Caucasia. We see they take out more territory in the south around here, and eventually the Romans kind of just split this stuff with Persia. These countries have never interacted before. They don't have any diplomatic ties. However, Persia does not trust the Romans. So what do they do when they get into this stuff? Well, they completely barrel down the Romans, who are a much smaller force. Poland's military is third in the world, probably, I don't know, yeah, third's about right. The military is like their entire thing that makes their country good, though, and they've got support from the blue and the pink countries as well, helping to fight over here. And with that, they kind of do pretty well in this war. The Carthaginians are also fighting down here in the south, and although the red team's kind of lost at this point, they're going to say, hey, red team, we'll give you some land if you will fight us. And of course, the red team nationalists eagerly will join in on the Persian side, which seems slightly wrong, but, you know, needs must. And the Persians are going to start absolutely crushing it against the Romans. They move into Syria now, and there's these western territories. The Caucasians, the Romans are like, hey, Caucasia, can you do something, please? And stop being a useless teammate. However, Caucasians kind of like, my economy is crumbling, my people hate me, and I'm dealing with the Orange Team rebels that were helping me, now not helping me. So that's fun. Yeah, it's not great right now. So, yeah, with that, we see invasions happen into Sardinia, Corsica, and then finally, yeah, we have all of Italy being taken over by the Carthaginians. Sorry, my throat is dry. Wait, no, what was I doing? Right, so the Romans are going to lose their offences over here, and finally the Polish will be able to invade into this sort of, what's it called? This territory. We see another rebellion pop up, this time in the Roman country, as a Greek state will appear. These guys are pro-Greece, of course. They want their own Greek country to exist again. Also, the same colour as the water. I don't know. I need to fix that. There you go. They're not. They're just the Carthaginians now, I guess. They will attempt to move towards Constantinople, but they struggle with this incredibly because it's Rome that you're fighting. But with support from all these other powers, and kind of Caucasia just quitting the war in a way, the Romans are like, hey, the Romans, the Polish are like, you deal with this. All the rebels there. The Polish will finally arrive at Constantinople, taking the capital city and ending the war with Rome. Hooray. Why did that not work? There'll be a slight counteroffensive against the Greeks, because everyone kind of pieces out, except for the Greeks who are like, oh, my independence, man. And we see some Romans manage to tackle their way into this sort of territory around here, pushing them back. However, Rome, it will collapse. The king will be killed and kind of replaced by a democracy. So I'm not sure what to do with the rest of this video. I'm 24 minutes, and to be honest, I'd like to just leave it here. I feel like I obviously can't do a peace treaty at this point. However, I can talk about what we're going to see in the next episode. I mean, peace treaty take ages, and there's going to be a lot of independences. Because everyone's going to return home now. Caucasia is going to have to give up some of this stuff. They're obviously not going to keep any of it or all of it anyway. They'll keep some of it though, just not all of it. So they give up this stuff. I might need to use the other map as reference, like episode 11's map, because this looks pretty different, if you can tell. Anyway, yeah, Poland tries to reassimilate all of this territory, and also all of their occupied territories in the Balkans, and it goes terribly. They just cut down a load of aristocratic families because they need money. The country just absorbs those territories and land, and it goes incredibly badly. So, phase 2 of this war is the Polish Civil War. So we see groups rise up all across. I'm not just going to use orange because I can. But for example, just imagine things like this, but just everywhere. Even in the Caucasian country, groups start to rise up, like in Denmark, in Scandinavia, just groups absolutely everywhere going, hey, we hate you, and it's unfair you took our land. And they just subsidize the entire population. They try and enlist people from France and Carthage to try and help them. They give promises to people of territory. However, no one's really willing because it seems like interacting with the Polish gives you a rebellion. So, yeah, don't want that. And the French and the Carthaginians start the peace treaty to divide up the stuff they've captured, whilst Poland just sits there and slowly falls into lots of small pieces. The capital is finally taken by rebels, and they will declare the end of the Polish Empire, although not everyone likes this, but we see areas split off, like all these sorts of very small federal autonomous territories split off from the Polish Empire, and yeah, by next episode you will see a very divided Polish Empire and a very divided Roman Empire as we move into these sort of Dark Ages / medieval era, just early point. Yeah, the world is going to be very different. So, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I know if war isn't your favourite thing and you want more lore and expansion and whatever, discovery, this episode might not have been your favourite. However, if you didn't like this episode stuff, then you're going to like the next episode stuff. Or you can just like both and be cool like that. So, yeah. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. See you again next time. And like, subscribe, and comment also any countries you want to see return, because I'm not really sure. Thank you, and goodbye.